Welcome back to the Rec Room podcast. I am your host, Gary Gouty, today, and here today we have a very, very important and special guest, Miss Fitz Koehler, who is a TV personality, corporate spokesperson, speaker, race announcer, author, trainer, athlete. Is there anything this wonderful woman does not do? Fitz, how are you doing today?
I am so great, and I love talking to fellow Gators. So thank you for having me on your show.
Of course, yeah, it was an honor when you got back to me. This is our first big time interview on the Rec Room Pod, and I can't wait to see who we could potentially get next. I'm just ecstatic to have this opportunity right now. So, Miss Fitz, you've done it all, but everybody starts somewhere, essentially. So let's kind of get into the background of where Fitz Koehler is from and who she is.
Yeah, so originally from Fort Lauderdale area, North Lauderdale specifically, right near Coral Springs, and I know our Gator Nation probably is very familiar with that part of the state. And I grew up one of three. I was the youngest, and we were just a sports family. So I think the first thing I did was cheer, followed by playing soccer forever. I did competitive speed skating on roller skates, t-ball. Uh, what else did I do? I mean, I did it all, and I was constantly trying out for everything. I didn't make every team because I wasn't necessarily great at anything, but I just wanted to play. I loved being on a team. I loved wearing a uniform. I loved being fit and healthy. So a childhood built around sports, but again, no real expertise in anything. My older siblings were awesome athletes. My brother was offered football scholarships to Florida and Florida State,
Wow.
also soccer scholarships, but he was a terrible test taker, so he wasn't able to take advantage of those things. Smart guy, just not really successful with those standardized tests. And then my sister played collegiate soccer at FIU, and I was pretty mediocre. And I blew out my right knee playing soccer at a soccer camp. I got tackled and tore the MCL and a few other things. And so pre-surgery, they had me go to physical therapy. And I thought, I kind of like this. This is a job I could do. I like the gym atmosphere. I like the helping people. And so in my mind, I was only 14, but I thought maybe I'll be a PT. And then I had surgery. And then when they took the cast off, I went back to PT and they started messing with my incision. And I thought, ugh, that's disgusting. I would never want to do this. Don't ever, I will not do physical therapy. But thankfully, that PT told my mom that he said, you should sign her up at a gym and get her to continue strength training, or she's going to re-injure this knee. And so my mother lied. She said I was 16, so I could join Spa Lady. And I went to the gym and I started strength training, really enjoyed that. I started taking group classes, thought those instructors were super cool. And I had been working at Cinnabon at the time, which is exactly the direct opposite of fitness, working at Cinnabon. But
Yeah.
thankfully, my manager there was really mean and I got sick of it. So I quit Cinnabon. I applied at the gym. They hired me. And the first thing they had me do was teach a class, which I had never done before. But they said, can you teach? And I thought, sure, why not? I'm a gamer, and that goes a long way. The ability to or the willingness to say yes and figure it out. And so, yeah, started teaching fitness, fell in love with that. I actually fell in love with fitness, and I grasped how powerful it could be in changing people's lives, not only their body, but their mental health, and then their career and their relationships. Fitness really is transformational. It matters. Your life will be better with it, and it will be worse without it. And so I came to UF and I auditioned at the rec center, and thank goodness they hired me. And that was probably one of the most fun I've ever had teaching fitness, because whereas I had to mind my P's and Q's with music in a standard gym at UF, I could blast the most vulgar rap music and everyone was down with it, and would have 60 students in a class and fogging up the windows. And gosh, it was such a blast. And I took a summer and I worked on a cruise ship. I applied to a few, and I was hired on the nicest ship in the world. And so I flew to New York, sailed to France, England, toured every capital of Scandinavia, Russia, and Estonia. And so that was my first time leaving the country. My family, we were pure Floridians. We vacationed at Disney and SeaWorld and Busch Gardens. Those were our vacations up until that point. So traveling the world independently was pretty powerful stuff. And then when I came back for the fall in my sophomore year, there was a television producer auditioning for a fitness TV show, and I auditioned and I got that gig. And that was a real turning point for me because I had gone from, well, I learned two things. I learned, number one, that my skills were transferable. This thing I did in front of a live audience, I could also do on a camera and do it just as well. And then the second real aha moment was my ability to connect with strangers and impact strangers. So I'd be walking around, I don't know, anywhere in the state, and strangers would approach and say, "Are you Fitz?" And I'd say, "Yeah." They say, "I love your show. I work out with you all the time. I've lost 17 pounds, or my back no longer hurts." And so that was pivotal for me because I loved helping strangers. And I realized that if I focused on mass media, then I could. And so I think I was maybe 21 the last time I actually worked in a fitness center. Everything I've done since then has been television, radio, books, magazines, corporate speaking, anything to put me in front of a large audience to help change a large amount of people. And my career has just continued to evolve from there.
Yeah, so overall, everything you've done has, like you said, impacted strangers, and I feel like through sport and through athletics, I mean, that's kind of the whole gig essentially. When you look at athletes performing on a field, they're impacting strangers' emotions, and then in your line of work, talking about how you're impacting people's overall health, which I mean, in America, we need more than anything. So that's amazing. So you talked about all sorts of things from, going on a cruise and working on a cruise, which I think is crazy because I've been on cruises before and never really once thought about working on a ship. And you talked about how you did all these sports, speed skating. I didn't even know that was a thing. I mean, that just goes to show how kind of diverse sports are overall. But one thing I kind of want to backtrack to, and one thing that you and I can sort of relate to, is going to the University of Florida. The first time I ever heard about you or saw you was in Dr. Francis's lecture, which I believe was for advanced career preparation.
Yeah.
And one thing that I never really told Dr. Francis or told anybody was I didn't really go to class, to be honest. I kind of went through a big struggle last semester where I started my fitness journey. And while I was in Southwest Rec, I ended up having my first sort of interaction with anxiety. I had my first ever panic attack while I was in the gym. So that kind of set me back for sure, in life overall. But the one lecture I did go to, I was lucky enough that you were talking. And it was kind of amazing because I would go to these classes and like be really anxious and nervous. Like, am I going to be able to sit through this entire lecture? And everything you kind of covered in that lecture was engaging and interesting. And I was interested in your story. So the entire time I was there, I wasn't even thinking about that. I was just focused on you. So thank you for that. Overall, that kind of made me want to start going back to class. But again, the University of Florida. So what did you do while you were at the University of Florida?
Well, first of all, thank you for that. That's very meaningful. And yeah, I hope you continue to work through your obstacles. We all have challenges, right?
Of
So
course, of
I'm
course.
proud of you for taking them on.
Thank you.
So my time at UF was the best time ever. I actually started off my undergraduate degree is political science, and I have a minor in communication and education. I came back and earned a master's in exercise and sports sciences. That's kind of when I figured out what career I wanted to take. But I did it all. My freshman year, I was independent. I had the best time ever. I lived in Broward Hall. I lived in Tolbert Hall over the summer and just loved that experience, the good, the bad, and the ugly of it. And then I pledged a sorority. I was at AOPI. Started my sophomore year, which was a lot of fun. It was a rowdy group of girls, and we had a good time. It wasn't perfect, but it was great. I know you're a Chi Phi. I can tell you that Chi Phi is. They used to have this Get Wet party. Are you familiar with Get Wet?
No, but please tell me all about it.
So good. So good. It was back in the day. It was one of the original foam parties. And so that front courtyard, they would lay bisqueen and seal it up like a pool. and put water in and foam, and there was DJ, and it was phenomenal. It was very, very fun. I dated guys from all the different fraternities. I might have been dating at Chi Phi at that time, but that's where I lost my first fake ID at a Chi Phi get wet party. So,
Really? And around what year was this?
oh yeah, 90 something.
Okay, all right. I'm just curious. All right, continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. 90 something. It was so good. It was really fun. Yeah, I took advantage of all the things. I would eat at the Rights Union. I would go to comedy night at the Rights Union. I went to every bar religiously. The bar scene was mind blowing, and the football games were top notch. Steve Spurrier was our coach. We were winning national championships. Danny Werfel was around. I mean, it was the heyday for so much. And I know you guys are also having your heyday right now, but I fell in love hardcore with being a Gator. In fact, when I came to UF, I got it, but I also didn't get it. My very first football game, I would say my first season of football games, I went to all the games alone. Like my friends in the dorm, they didn't want to go. And so I'd go buy my student ticket. I was normally sitting alone in like the 90th row in the stadium. I just wanted to be a part of it. But I would walk out of my dorm and I'd see people dressed up in these orange and blue cowboy outfits and orange and blue alien outfits. And I just thought, I don't get it. What do cowboys have to do with the Gators? And it's not about that. It's just about being a part of the orange and blue and the culture. And I fell in love with it really quickly, but it was one of my first games of my freshman year where we lost a nail biter at home, I believe, to Auburn. And we the stadium dumped out at night. And instead of Gators hanging their head low, everyone in the stadium just erupted. And it's great to be a Florida Gator. And I thought, these are my people. Like we just lost a big game and they're still so proud to be us. And I decided then I would rather be a losing Gator than a winning anything else. This is, it's the best. It's the best. So yeah, I did it all at UF, and I taught fitness the whole time throughout the rec centers. The Southwest Rec Center was built while I was in undergrad. And I came back, I had left college, moved to England, and I worked at some fitness centers, restructuring the gym for the US Navy over there. I went back to Fort Lauderdale and I thought, ugh, I don't want to be here. And I came back to Gainesville for a Florida State football game. And I just had so much fun. And I decided I need to get back here. And so I made up a lame excuse to get a master's degree. And it was one of the best decisions I ever made, coming back to Gainesville and then being a part of the university. And of course, that master's degree is probably the biggest, most important feather in my cap professionally. And I also, in grad school, I started another sport. I was a competitive kickboxer. It's a sport I had interest in. I don't know why, but since high school. And then I met a trainer and we started training kind of just for fun, just so I could experience doing it. And one day while we were sparring, I was asking him the rules, and he said, Fitz, if you get grabbed in a parking lot, there are no rules. It's not like you're ever going to get in the ring. And I said, oh, okay, you're right. And we continued sparring and we were done. I said, you know what? I think I would like to fight. And he said, I knew you would. And so we refocused my training to competition, and I competed for almost 10 years.
Wow. Yeah, so kickbox, I mean, that's just another thing we add on to your resume of sports. That's honestly the last thing I was expecting. But yeah, I mean, the University of Florida obviously has given you so much and has given me so much. I mean, it's given me a culture that I live by religiously, a group of friends that I feel like I'll never ever leave behind, and also an education that has allowed me to become what I am today, which is kind of funny because, you talk about how you went on from doing all these different things, trying different sports, getting a master's. Whenever I first came to the University of Florida, I was a nursing major, actually. And now I'm sports management. But the thing that I think kind of set me back in a way was the Gator culture. I got way too wrapped up in going to mid and going to downtown and going to the games and rushing a fraternity that all that kind of just went to the back of my mind. But the one thing that I did find was when everything was kind of hitting the fan and I was like, what am I going to do? Because I'm behind in these classes. I met actually the owner of the company, Johnny Mondo, and he was like, dude, just try sports management. And I remember telling my parents about it, and they're like, no shot, bro. Like, there's no way you're gonna go from nursing to sports. And I was like, watch me. And here I am today. And honestly, whenever I first told them to watch me, I did not expect it to be here. I kind of just
Wow.
expected to be a middle of the pack kind of kid, but university has given me so much and so much faith in myself. And, Dr. Francis, especially, just approving this internship. And I would have never seen myself talking to you one on one. So, but yeah, Gator, it's great to be a Gator. But we'll move on to the next topic, which is Fitzness International LLC, your company. Can you kind of explain what that is?
Yeah, so my company helps people live better and longer via mass media. I work to make fitness understandable, attainable, and fun for the masses. And so I do that in a variety of ways, which we've already mentioned, but it's just generating educational content to compel people to want to get fit and then educate them on how to get fit. I would say that my brand, Fitzness, is gimmick free. It's fitness without any of the snake oil, without the diets, the pills, the powders, a supplement, without any of the garbage the fitness industry is known for. I've taken my education very seriously. I take people's spinal columns and their heart and lungs very seriously and their health very seriously. So I teach people the nuts and bolts on exercise, the four pillars of fitness: strength, cardio, flexibility, balance. You have to have them all. Without one, you don't qualify as fit. Talk about real nutrition, not keto and not intermittent fasting and all that garbage and the GNC where they're selling hoopla that nobody needs. Is let's talk about food. Let's talk about what you need to achieve your physical goals, how important sleep is, how important it is to remove the cranky people from your life. So um, I've stuck with the basics, and because of that, it works for me. And a little warning to other fitness professionals, and that's a very loose term, right? You could get some sort of a certification out of a Cracker Jack box. There really is no regulation in the fitness industry, which is great in one aspect because I don't think the government getting involved in our business really makes it better usually. But then also there's this, any Tom, Dick, and Harry can make up a fake business card and say, I'm a trainer, and people will believe them. So, I would say anyone who would like to be in the fitness industry, don't sell out. If I had taken any of the money offered to me, and I've been offered millions to promote pills and powders and all of that stuff, and I've rejected it all. If I had done that, companies like Disney, Oakley, Tropicana, Office Depot, they would have never hired me to stand on their stages and represent their brands to either their employees or their consumers. So your reputation goes a long way. And I've taken my business very seriously because I care about the other folks, but I don't want any blemishes on my brand. I don't want anybody ever to come back and say she lied to us. And so it's great. My business is great. It's grown exponentially every year, and I love what I do, and I hope I never retire.
Yeah, and I mean, everything you just said is super impactful because I remember whenever I was trying to get into fitness and like really start taking it seriously, you go on Instagram or Twitter or TikTok or any sort of big social media, and there are millions of people telling you a million different things you can do, a million different supplements you can take, a million different workout regimens you can follow, diets, etc. But that's one thing that I think separates you from everybody else because going through your website, it's very natural, it's very personal. There's not a million advertisements in my face telling me to buy this, that, and the other. And I think honestly, I mean, whenever you're going into a business, regardless, you want to find something that separates you from everybody else. But with your business, it seems as though you didn't necessarily have to find anything. You just were yourself. And you didn't take, like you said, these handouts from these random companies that produce things that may or may not help you. And then you work for other big companies. So I think that's awesome that just by being yourself and, kind of embodying your personality, you were able to grow Fitzness into what it is today. Um,
Thank you.
so, regardless of how fit we stay, there are certain roadblocks in life that can just naturally appear. And for you, it was breast cancer. So can we kind of touch on that?
Yeah, yeah. So in 2019, I was living my best life as the busy fitness pro and athlete running lots of races. And I was at a race weekend 7 weeks after a crystal clear mammogram where I got out of the shower and I rubbed my underboob and I found a lump. And I knew exactly what it was. And this is, an important message I always like to share is I picked up my cell phone naked in that bathroom. There was 30 seconds between finding the lump and getting the doctor on the phone. And so that phone call led off a series of appointments and a mammogram and an ultrasound and punch biopsies. And within about a week or so, I got a call from a surgeon who said, Fitz, I'm so sorry, but that mass in your breast is breast cancer. It's already spread through your lymph nodes. It's running through you like wildfire. And we need to treat you urgently and aggressively. And so they did. I had 15 months of nasty, nasty chemotherapy, which I'm very grateful for, and 33 rounds of radiation and some surgery. And I'm very grateful that cancer is in my rear view mirror. But it was a rough road, and I made some great decisions along the way. And number one was perspective. We have all those kids in the pediatric oncology unit at Shands or UF Health. And so because of that, I decided not to have a pity party. I did cry. I was stressed. It was unbearable stress. However, never asked why me, because you got to start with why them? Why a baby? Why would a baby have cancer? That baby did nothing. And so perspective always ruled my days, and it made the awful days much less awful. I was always so grateful it wasn't my kids with cancer. I figured I'm a grown up with cancer. It's not fun. I don't like it, but I'm going to put on my big girl panties and get on with it. And then I chose to continue with my passions, were my kids and my career. And so during my treatment, and I was violently ill the whole time. Imagine the tequila hangover or food poisoning every day for 15 months. It was a nightmare, but I boarded over 30 planes out of Gainesville, Florida to go travel across the country to announce the races, to do my keynotes. And it was hard. It was very, very hard. But, a couple things, I'm really good at doing hard things. I've had a lifetime before cancer where I proved to myself what I was capable of. So I just, like a robot, kept going. And the magic happened out at those destinations, because even if I had slept on the hotel bathroom floors because I was sick, when I'd get up in the morning and drag myself over to my start line stage or the keynote stage, every single thing that was wrong with me disappeared the second I stepped on those stages. I wasn't sick. I wasn't tired. I wasn't exhausted. All I was elated to be doing this job I do, serving these incredible organizations and these phenomenal people. And for as long as I had an athlete out on the course or an audience member in the room, I could be full force Fitz Koehler again. And so that's really the beauty of pursuing your passion. You've chosen sports management. You seem to love sports and fitness. This will be your saving grace. And instead of some people who maybe they get sick and they go, oh, I hate my job, I don't want to do it. My job was a sanctuary for me. My work was this great sense of relief. Was the travel hard? Sure, but it was worth it, because if I hadn't gone to do those things, all I would have been was sick. If I didn't have my kids to spend time with, all I would have been was sick. And so cancer was nightmarish, but I made great choices and I got myself through it. And instead of shutting down shop for a year and a half, I tripled my business because I was so aggressive during treatment. And I ended up also authoring 3 books. I have the Cancer Comeback series. One is a guidebook for other cancer patients to weaponize exercise and nutrition to help themselves reach remission and prevent recurrence. That's your Healthy Cancer Comeback. There's the Healthy Cancer Comeback Journal goes along with this. And then I have a memoir, my Noisy Cancer Comeback, running at the mouth while running for my life. And that one has just made a killing. People love it. It's a tragic tale with so much triumph and funny stories. And cancer's awful, but it's also kind of weird and hilarious if you're silly like me. And so it's done very, very well amongst cancer patients and people who have thankfully no cancer in their life. It's just a book that helps them work on more mental fortitude, and I think they enjoy it. So yeah, bye-bye cancer. I'm done with it.
Yeah, for sure. And we kind of touched on it before we started the podcast. When I was in 12th grade, I kind of thought that, life was at its peak, especially for my high school years. I started playing football, I was the player with the cheerleader girlfriend, yada, yada, yada. And then one day I come home, my whole family's crying, and then I find out my mom had stage 2 breast cancer. Well, at first it was announced to me as stage 4, and I
Whoa.
was like, holy shit. And then I go back home, and thank God it was only stage 2, but I saw it all. I mean, I saw the chemo, I saw the double mastectomy, and it's such, I mean, I don't know. Obviously, for me, it was traumatic because I look back on it and it's a blur in my memory at this point because I can think about things before and after, but that period of my life is just a blur. But honestly, I'm almost thankful for it because obviously, nobody wants to see their parents or their loved ones go through that. But it taught me that, life is so fragile and that you really just you gotta get after what you want to get, and that was actually one of the turning points in my collegiate decision making was I applied to UCF because I live in Orlando. And I was like, all right, so if I go to UCF, I can be close enough to home where if shit hits the fan, I can go home immediately and I can be there for my mom. But I also applied to UF because that was my dream. So when it came down to making a decision, I remember speaking to my mom, and she was like, you know what? You never know what's going to happen to you day by day. Chase your dream. And that's what I did. And I went to UF immediately. Thankfully, my mom's good now. You're good now. We can give a big finger to cancer.
Yeah.
We hate it. But yeah,
I, I'm I'm glad your mom's okay, and I can only imagine. I know how hard she must have worked to try to keep you unafraid and calm your nerves and encourage you to believe that she was going to be okay, even on the days where she wasn't sure she was going to be okay.
yeah,
Um, Parenting with cancer is very interesting, but I'm 100% confident her exclusive focus of survival was being a part of your very long life. And if you have siblings, it's interesting when you're a parent and you face anything, you just think, okay, anything going on in my world is now suddenly very irrelevant. It's their life. What do I do to stick around to be a part of their life? So I'm so glad she's okay. And you.
yeah. I appreciate it. And that's obviously not something that I thought about because I'm on the other end of the spectrum, but you know, that's enough about cancer. We
Yeah.
hate it and we're glad that everybody's okay. And, God, cancer sucks. But you talked a little bit about your books, and let's go into it a little bit. I feel like books nowadays are kind of, I don't want to say a thing of the past because obviously your books are very successful, but it's kind of something that people kind of put in the back of their brain. So tell me about your experience with being an author.
Yeah, so I would say books are not a thing of the past, but the way we absorb them are different. So I listen to books all the time, my audiobooks.
Okay.
I keep going. I'm one of those. I like yoga doesn't work for me because it's too silent, right? So if I could do stretching if I'm listening to an audiobook, but I need constant mental stimulation. So I think people are just reading books in different ways, but doing very well. I've these books are not my first book. I had one book published in I think 2010. It was the Everything Flat Belly Cookbook with a publishing company, Adams Media, and that experience was pretty good. But soon after, I was hired to write a second book, and I did. And the publishing company wanted to fiddle with the content. They wanted to actually promote weight loss supplements, and they also wanted to promote negative calorie food, which isn't a thing, suggesting that if you eat raspberries, you burn more calories digesting them than you do in consumption, which is totally false. So I had to fight over that and say, you can't lie to people. And they said, this will sell books. And I said, well, you cannot put a book with my name on it if you're going to lie. And they said, okay. And they took my name off of my book, and they hired some dietitian hack who was willing to lie to people and put her name on that book. I still got paid, but my literary agent had me sign a contract, and she had me listed as freelance writer versus author. If you're the author, apparently you have final say, but if you're listed as freelance writer, it was just, I provided them with content for contract and they could have done whatever they want with it. And they did. So when I decided I wanted to write these books, I decided I do not want to yield control to anyone else. This content is too important, and I don't trust the publishing house. I don't trust anybody to fiddle with this particular content. So I went the self-publishing route, and it was awesome. I mean, it was challenging because I had to do a lot of things that I hadn't done before, but there's so many tremendous resources out there that guided me along. There's a woman, Julie Broad. She goes by the Book Broad. She has a company, Book Launchers, and she has all these little YouTube videos, hundreds of YouTube videos talking about every aspect of the self-publishing process. So I listened to Julie Broad videos every day, and I connected with other authors who had gone down the self-publishing route. And what I learned is that I really need to hire professionals. And so I did all the writing myself, but then I hired a professional editor. And then I hired another professional editor to re-edit that work. And then I hired professional cover designer and a layout designer. And so I had to invest. And a lot of people don't with self-publishing. They just think, oh, I can write it in Word document, I'll edit it, and I'll draw a cover. And then that book sits in the bottom of the bin the way it should. But this was a really interesting process. And one of the things I found many years ago, I actually produced a fitness DVD as well, because I had wanted a DVD, and I don't know what I was waiting for. I just thought some production company was going to come over and be like, hey, Fitz, you want to do a DVD? We'll produce it for you. And then I realized, you know what, that's not happening. I need to do it myself. And thankfully today, technology is so accessible. We could really do anything. And it's pretty easy to hire professional contractors. So I produced the DVD by myself, and that was gangbusters, wildly successful. And the books have been great. Very successful. They've been purchased in bulk by oncologists and cancer centers that distribute them to their patients, which is very meaningful. They're chronically purchased as gifts for cancer patients. So it's one of those things where someone will reach out and say, my dad has brain cancer. Can I get him your books? Can I get them express? I need him to have them tomorrow. Or my sister has ovarian cancer or whatever. So they're very frequently purchased as gifts. But my goal for the books, because you got to aim high, and my goal is that this particular book will end up in the hands of every single newly diagnosed cancer patient on earth, because they all should be exercising. They all should be utilizing nutrition to, at minimum, stave off infection. Every time someone pokes a needle through your body, you are susceptible to infection. So this stuff is really important. And yeah, I'm hoping it'll get to the point where every cancer patient on earth has it, and they're doing better because of it.
Yeah, and I think that's also, I mean, I feel like everything you do is super impactful and super meaningful, but it's interesting how even after, you beat cancer, you are still fighting cancer in your own way by trying to help others, which I think is amazing because, as somebody who has experienced somebody with cancer close to me, that was kind of the difficult thing where, the only thing I really felt like I could offer was hope and kind of like reinstating the fact that we're always here for you no matter what you need. But I also think it's important that people that are sick kind of take matters into their own hands and kind of,
Bingo.
yeah, find something that works for them. Because that was the thing for my mom. For her, it was reading. It was kind of just like finding little things to do around the house that keeps her, going rather than just laying in bed dormant. So,
just to follow up on that, is so many people, when they get diagnosed, people instantly say, you just got to rest, just hide out at home, don't do anything, which is terrible. I mean, for your mental sanity, we isolate prisoners. We don't isolate people we love with cancer, right? But if they do just stay home and they don't exercise in any way, even though, I mean, life gets tough, you will definitely have some days where exercise is not an option. But if you do not pursue strength and cardio and flexibility and balance, eventually you will be susceptible to falling. What's worse than cancer is, I don't know, a skull fracture in cancer, a broken hip in cancer, losing your mobility, your stamina. Life just gets incrementally harder with this treatment. And so you can stave off some of that weakness and inability by staying the course. And many days it just looks like doing leg lifts in bed, doing bridges and maybe some crunches in bed. Can you stretch in the shower? For sure you can. So, it's just about doing what you can when you can, and don't wait for cancer to take on that attitude. Everybody every day should prepare their body to do battle, because we never know when illness or injury will strike. And if you go into any sort of crisis fit and strong, you will be so much less likely to slide so far back, and you will make a much more efficient recovery. So yeah, fitness matters.
All right. Well, we only got a couple more things I want to talk about, but one of these things is, I think, probably one of the biggest parts of your career, which is announcing at these big races.
Yeah.
So tell me all about it, please.
It's possibly one of the most fun things I've ever done. So on race day at usually quite large events, I'm waiting for the athletes as they arrive. I host LA Marathon, Big Sur Marathon, Buffalo Marathon, Fargo Marathon, Gasparilla, the Donna, tons of different events all around the country. And so as athletes arrive in the morning, I'm waiting on a stage next to the start line playing killer music, and I'm there to engage, inform, entertain. I get athletes to know what they need to do, where the porta potties are, where bag check is, who the sponsors are. I tell them about their course, and then we just shoot the shit. We have a lot of fun. I like to keep them laughing. It's important to take the ones that are nervous and calm them down a bit. And then if people are trying to earn a PR or win the race, I want to pump them up. And I like start lines to feel like rock concerts. So we're pretty darn rowdy. My start lines are very wild and very energetic and so much fun. And as much happy noise as I make for everybody when after I've yelled go and they start running through the start line, it's incredible. All these people, I'm like their race friend, right? They're looking at one person and they're waving and cheering and blowing kisses and high-fiving. And I love just absorbing their joy as they pass by me on their way out for a big adventure. And then when everybody comes through the finish line, I'm there to welcome almost all of them by name. Technology with a chip on the back of their bib allows me to say, here comes Gary Gouty from Gainesville, Florida. He's 22 and blah, blah, blah. So it's awesome. It is so much fun. And the events I work with are iconic. They're all just legendary, and people travel. Most of my races have 50 states represented. All 50 states have athletes coming in and multiple countries. And it's just a big stinking deal. And I love getting to make happy noise and be the first one to celebrate each finisher. It's awesome.
Yeah, and personally, I've only participated in one race my entire life. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not a big runner. I'm 6'3", 215. I'm not a big runner. I played line in football. But the one race I did run was at Disney. It was like this 5K at Epcot, and I remember waking up at like 5 a.m. and my parents were like, "This is something we're gonna do as a family, and we're gonna walk it together." And then I remember getting to the start line, and it was like so surreal because first of all, you're at Disney when nobody else is there. And then they're like, okay, you're gonna run around our park. And like as a child, I would like, I thought back to me as a kid, like this is everything I ever wanted to see, like as a kid in Orlando at least. And I remember I just started running. My parents were like, "Where are you going?" I was like, I'm gonna win this race." And I just charged on. And I think I ended up running the 5K in like 29 minutes. So for
Nice.
me, that was pretty good. But yeah, like you were saying, these races are something that I definitely think have become a fad over the past decade, and something that, I mean, everybody of all ages, of all ethnicities, of all different kinds of mobilities
Right.
joy. So
So you nailed it. And it's interesting. We call them races, and they technically are races, but I would say only 10% of any one of my my groups of athletes are running the whole way. There's this big chunk of people in the middle that do a version of run and walk and run and walk. They do what feels good at the moment just to get themselves to the finish line. And then we have a huge chunk of people that exclusively walk. They do nothing but walk. And that's just fine too. We want those people. We welcome them. And it's funny, you were like, well, I'm 6'2" and I'm 215 pounds. Okay, well, I've had guys that are 6'5" and 400 pounds, not only doing 5K, but doing full marathons. And the full marathon is 26.2. So sometimes people say, I'm doing a 5K marathon. The only thing on earth that's a marathon is the distance of 26.2. So I would like to establish that. But at that distance, I've had plenty of people that are 400 pounds. I have had 90-year-olds, 94-year-olds doing full marathons. I have had people with zero legs doing full marathon on their prosthetics. We have chair divisions, so push rim wheelchairs or hand cycles come through. It really is completely inclusive of every type of person. So if you're out there thinking, oh, I can't do a race, I can't do a race, I couldn't do a 5K, I don't like to run. I don't care if you run, you walk. Almost everybody knows how to walk. And if you can roam through the mall for an hour, you can do a 5K. It's just point A to point B, take your own sweet time. And when you get there, me or someone like me will say, hooray for you. And then we'll give you a medal and a shirt. And, you know, it's awesome. And in college, there's still an opportunity. You have co-ed sports, you've got club teams and this or that. When you're 30, 40, 50, it becomes increasingly difficult to join a rugby team or a cheerleading team. But this racing thing, there are 1,000 races in our country every single weekend of the year. Wherever you are, there's likely at minimum a 5K. And so can you go out with your old grandpa friends and go do a 5K? You can. So, you know, for people that do like sports, this is one of those staples that you should give a go. And if you would like to commit yourself to longevity, to a nice quality life, if you committed to doing a 5K once a month for the rest of your life, there's a good chance that your body will never get out of control, right? You'll never be 50 pounds too heavy and I don't know, immobile. So yeah, the running community is awesome, and people wear costumes and they're silly. And I love it when dinosaurs come through the start. I mean, that's the best. Give me an inflatable dinosaur or 5.
Yeah, I've seen a couple videos of that and it's definitely funny, but overall, you know, racing, like we said, is just this super inclusive space where everybody from all walks of life can kind of work towards the same thing, which I think is so important, especially in this day of age, is where, you know, just having a place where people can come together for a common good and help each other on, because it's just not something you see a lot, you know what I'm saying? So
It's the best reflection of society. You know, it's all these people, they're working for their health, their community, great causes. And, you know, it's funny, within the running community, DEI is a big thing now. They're always talking like, how do we do more for women, or how do we do more for brown people, or this or that? And I hate it. And the reason being is because our races are so unified. You know, I don't want to cheer for only the women or only the colorful people or only the, I just, when we line up, we run as one. This is the thing. We are all there at the same start line. We have the same distance. We cross that same finish line. And it's so unifying, where people start picking you apart based on where you pray or who you were born to. And so it just drives me crazy. I love the fact that we just have this big unified blob of people, you know, and if somebody trips on the course, everybody surrounding them will try to pick them up. It's really, it's the best of the best. And I don't think we should be separated at all. I love that it's a respectful love fest from start to finish. It's cool community.
for sure. All right. Well, that was the last informational topic I really had, but I do want to introduce a new segment to kind of bring some life to this podcast, some variety. So, our final segment is going to be called Rapid Fire Questions, where I give you a minute and I'm just going to fire off simple questions that really kind of only need one word answers, and then we'll just cut it and that'll be it. All right. So, all right, so I'm going to start the timer in 3, 2, 1. Favorite sport,
Running.
favorite color,
Blue.
favorite food,
Oranges.
Favorite place you've been?
Ireland.
One place you want to go?
Back to Ireland.
Favorite celebrity?
Garth Brooks.
Favorite car?
My big red Jeep Wrangler.
Favorite season?
Summer.
Favorite movie?
Mm, I don't, I don't know. Endgame?
Okay. Well, that's all the questions I had. So you did really good, but I will end it with one more question. Miss Fitz, what is the most valuable thing that you have gathered from your career that has just spanned from announcing, beating cancer, writing your book, starting a company? I mean, you've done it all, but what what is valuable to you? What have you
That
taken away?
health, the pursuit of passions, and fearlessness. Don't be afraid of anything that won't yield bleeding, bruising, or broken bones. You got to go for it. You got to put all your concerns aside and lean in and make your own success happen.
For sure. All right. Well, thank you so much, Fitz, for joining us today on the Rec Room podcast. If you guys enjoyed, please be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell, follow us on socials. Again, Miss Fitz, thank you so much for joining us today. This was a true honor to have you on here.
Thanks for having me, and go Gators.
Go Gators. Have a great day, y'all.